तरीका है बॉस। नहीं हमारा नहीं आ रहा है। पोस्ट पोस्ट
आवाज नहीं आ रही है। नॉट गेटिंग।
Executive NFC, Hyderabad, Dr. G. Amrendra, Rajaramana Fellow, former Director, Material Science Group, IG Kar Kalbakam, Director and Chairman, INS Hyderabad Branch, Dr. D. K. Sinha, Additional Director, Research and Development, Secretary, INS Hyderabad Branch, Dr. T. S. Sunil Kumar, Regional Directors, Deputy Regional Directors who are connected virtually and are present physically, Group Heads, In Charges, Senior Scientists and Officers who are present with us physically and connected virtually, the INS members from different parts of the world who are connected through virtual mode, also the students and faculty members from different parts of the country who are attending the webinar through the virtual platform. A very good afternoon. We have witnessed on this platform 8 webinars in series since August 2021 from eminent scientists, professors of our country who have shared their vast experience and contribution towards self-reliance in the fields of nuclear technology, space technology, earth sciences, oncology, particle physics, to name a few. Today, we are thoroughly pleased to witness the 9th invited talk from a renowned personality in our DA fraternity, Dr. R.B. Grover, who is going to deliver a topic on the relationship between science and technology. At the outset, I request Director AMD, Dr. D. K. Sinha, to welcome the Chief Guest, Professor Ravi B. Grover, with a fast sampling. I request Shravani to please assist the Director. Let's have a huge round of applause as a welcome gesture. Thank you, sirs. Now, without further ado, I invite our Honorable Director, Dr. Sinha sir, to the stage for his welcome address. Thank you, sir. Sinha sir, please.
Namaskar. And today's chief guest, Padma Shri Dr. R.V. Grover. He has come from Mumbai to give this lecture in physical mode. We were expecting this series to come to real senses, that is in physical mode, and probably now we have starting that this series in physical mode. Hope second lecture will also be in physical mode. Accordingly, we are going to have 3 or 4 more lectures. As you know that this series is continuing. This is the 9th lecture. 8th lecture we have already completed during last 8 months. And out of that, 6 lectures have been transformed into a very good research paper type of document. And that document is ready. 2 more are still continuing, and then we'll get the approval from the speaker and they will be ready. So the idea of such type of series is to get speakers of eminence, that is Padma Awardee, and in the same line, today we have our speaker, Dr. R.V. Grover. We have seen him working in DAE. He was instrumental in the upliftment of AMD along with Kakotkar Saab. So he is well aware of AMD activity, and he has immediately accepted my request when I put up to him to visit Hyderabad and address us. And the topic what he has chosen, in fact, he had 3-4 topics and given me freedom to select one of them. I said, sir, this is the forum where DAE officers are there. In addition to that, many universities are connected. Now the time of virtual era, this talk has been publicized so much that many university to whom we have MOU or we don't have MOU even, they have asked the link for connecting, and probably number is growing slowly. I have some names also, but I'm not going to read those names. Number of windows are connected and many are connected through YouTube. So what I'm expecting, at least 250 to 300 participants are watching this lecture every time, and this time also that will be known at the end how many are there. So this is a popular science series, and INS with the help of NFC, DAE, we are doing this job. Successful series is continuing. Now, such type of lecture usually attended by our CNFC. Most of the time he has been with us, barring one or two. And again, today, of course, very busy schedule, but he has made it to join us physically. We welcome you, sir. Amrinder sir is a part of now AMD. Every time we see him participating in all the functions. And my senior colleagues, I welcome all of you and hope that this lecture, which is going to be there, will be a real good, knowledgeable, knowledge-packed information which we are going to witness. Science and technology, really it's a wonderful topic, and the experience, what is behind in those science and technology speech is a great. We know that sir is associated with DE from so many long years, and all those experience are going to come through his, say, 1 hour long talk. So I again welcome you all and invite today's speaker, Dr. Grover, sir. Yeah, Srijala, you can take up.
Thank you very much, sir. As the Director sir has rightly pointed, Dr. Grover's immense contribution in the field of nuclear technology. Taking this as an opportunity, I would like to read out a few among his major achievements to this August gathering. Professor Ravi P. Grover is a member of Atomic Energy Commission and is currently Professor Emeritus in Homi Jehangir Bhabha National Institute, HBNI. He graduated from Delhi College of Engineering, Delhi University, and joined 14th batch of Bhatt Training School, Mumbai. He received his PhD from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He was the president of Indian Society of Heat and Mass Transfer during 2010 to 13. He has worked in Bhabha Atomic Research Center, the Secretariat of Department of Atomic Energy, DAE, and HBNI. Various positions held by him include Director, Knowledge Management Group, BRC, Director, Strategic Planning Group, DAE, Principal Advisor, DAE, and Director, Vice-Chancellor, HBNI. As a nuclear engineer, he specialized in nuclear thermal hydraulics, process design, and process safety analysis. He worked on the design of research reactor Dhruva and a compact reactor. He participated in negotiations with countries and international agencies, leading to the resumption of international civil nuclear trade. He was Source Shapra of Government of India for Nuclear Summit, security summits held in 2010, 2012, 14, and 16. He has been representing India in ITR Council right from its inception. He played a very significant role in conceptualizing and setting up HBNI concurrently with other responsibilities. He was its founding director, Vice-Chancellor from 2005 to 2016. He has received many awards. In particular, he has been honored by all institutions with which he was associated with. Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2009 and Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 by Delhi College of Engineering Alumni Association, Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2011 by IISc Alumni Association, and Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011 by Department of Atomic Energy. He was conferred with fourth highest civilian award, Padma Shri by Government of India in 2014 for his contribution in the field of nuclear sciences. He is a fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineering, the Maharashtra Academy of Sciences, and the World of Academy of Art and Science. Well, the list is endless. I would like to take a pause here and invite humbly Professor R.B. Grover onto the stage for his talk. So we are eager and delighted to listen to your talk, sir. Please.
Pointer screen? Screen has this. Like the yes. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. Dr. Sinha, Dr. Dinesh Srivastava, Dr. Amrendra, and several distinguished colleagues here. It's a pleasure to come back to AMD. I think this is a visit after about 6 or 7 years. AMD is something which is the, I should say, backbone of the Department of Atomic Energy. Atomic energy exists because of AMD. You are the group of people who provide uranium to us, and it's really something. The first division, I think, started by Dr. Bhabha when he embarked the journey to set up atomic energy program in the country. Well, today I have picked up a topic in consultation with Dr. Sinha about the relationship between science and technology. This is a topic on which there are, I think, several misgivings, but if you see, this is a relationship which has evolved over the years. So let me start share my views on this. The talk will be something like this. I will talk first about the relationship, the classical paradigm, shift in the relationship, modeling the relationship, and multiple facets of this relationship. Emergence of knowledge organizations globally, categorization of research, and representation of the relationship, summary and concluding remarks. Starting with the classical paradigm, useful arts, that is tools and crafts, they were developed by early civilizations. They have evolved to give us present-day technology. Whenever you hear about excavations at various places in the country and also in other countries, you always, they will mention that these are the tools which were located at those places. They will tell you about the pottery, they will tell you about the kind of structures which existed there. So earlier, I'm going long back, 3,000, 4,000 years back, when various tools were being used and the crafts are being practiced by early civilization. There is enough evidence that early civilizations, whether it was in the Indus Valley, in our region, or Egyptians or Babylonians, they studied mathematics. They studied geometry. I think you always hear whenever there's a talk of Indus Valley civilization that the layout of urban areas were geometrical, streets were laid out properly. That means they had some concept of geometry, architecture, and a lot is known about ancient temple architecture, particularly temples located in the southern part of the country, astronomy, calendaring. Calendar making has been going on for a very, very long time. So all these concepts were there with Indus Valley civilization, Egyptian civilization, Babylonians. That means that all these early civilizations, they did develop scientific concepts. Whatever intuitive means were available to them based on observations, based on their intuitions, they developed all the scientific concepts. However, the history is not clear as to when and where the concept of scientific inquiry originated. To attribute that all this originated in Europe is a misconception, is a myth created by Western civilization. Before the Greek civilization emerged, that was around 2000 years back, Indus Valley, Babylonians, Egyptians, they are much before that. All this architecture, astronomy, geometry, mathematics was already there. To say that everything attributed to Greek civilization is perhaps not correct. Earlier, when these excavations were not made, that was the kind of concept which was floating around. Now everybody agrees that these concepts were there much before the Greek civilization. But there is one aspect which is common between Indians and Greeks, that is they delinked philosophical inquiry from practical arts, and that is what I'll explain further. Practical arts, whether it was making of tools, whether it was making of pottery, whether it was making of buildings, they were pursued by people at lesser stations, while financially well-off elites, they were pursuing knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Elites were not interested in practical usefulness of knowledge, and those of you who have studied different philosophies which existed in India, there are several philosophical schools, 6 different branches or 7 different branches were there in India, but they were all being pursued by the elites in the society, rich people. Poor people were potterers and weavers and tool makers. They were separately things. And since those tools and those crafts, they are evolved into technology, while philosophy evolved into science, these two are distinct group of people. Only physicians were in a different category. They studied human anatomy and physiology, and for doing this, they had to dissect dead bodies. They were really practical people. Their object was to develop cure for diseases and surgical means for healing wounds and fractures. And this was true for India, where Ayurveda was being practiced has been practiced early days, and also in Greece, where physicians were working with the real bodies. I should say, they were experimental. They were not philosophical in their approach. Dominant thought in early civilization was that pursuit of knowledge is civilizing, and this has its intrinsic value. So you pursue knowledge for the sake of knowledge because of its intrinsic value. But a parallel thought which advocated a utilitarian case of knowledge, this emerged during 14th to 17th century as trade guilds. They became powerful in Europe. This is what is documented in the books on science and technology history. But guilds were present elsewhere also. Even in India, you had several crafts. And here, rather than guilds, the caste system is woven around these various trades. But somehow that is not so well documented as one can include in this. That's an area which science historians or technology historians have to research. Italian Renaissance, which happened during 14th to 17th century, they saw coupling of knowledge and action. The two were separate, but now the coupling started. The people like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Vasco da Gama, Christopher Columbus, and later Galileo. They were guided by an instinct that knowledge finds its purpose. That is, ultimately knowledge will be used. It will have some utilization, may not be immediately evident. At some stage, knowledge will find its purpose, direction, and action in its reason in knowledge. Action will be based on the previous knowledge which is available to you. So, all of you are aware of, at some stage, you must have read about how Galileo invented telescope and made astronomical observation. So this kind of fact that you can make better astronomical observations by having some instruments, by having some tools, So interest in practical arts, that is tool making, amongst elites grew only when they realized experimental observations are necessary for further growth of science. Francis Bacon in the UK, he said that roads to human power and to human knowledge, they lie close together and are nearly the same. Human power and human knowledge, once you start growing more and more tools and crafts, then you will progress in science. At the same time, you will become more and more prosperous. And this particular aspect was finally included in the second charter of the Royal Society. Royal Society was set up in 1660. There was a first charter at that time. In the second charter, the phrase that by further promoting by the authority of experiments the sciences of natural things and the useful arts to the advantage of human race. This became the first documented recognition of the fact that useful arts, experiments, they can be advantageous to the human race in the for its growth. 40% to 60% of scientific discoveries in the 17th century, when all this new paradigm started, they were for solving problems in navigation and mining, because these were the two main areas at that time. Navigation, because all the sailors and adventurers, they were exploring the world, they were locating new islands, new continents, new areas, and mining because metals were being used everywhere, so mining industry was growing. So 80% of scientific discoveries were directly utilized in navigation and mining. But in spite of all this, and despite Bacon saying that knowledge is utilitarian, it has to be used, developments in technology continued independent of science. The two communities, they remained separate, but technological developments accelerated with the availability of energy on a large scale in 18th century, and this is very interesting. The coal is something which is available, was known to mankind for a very long time. But it was not possible to mine coal on a large scale because of frequent flooding of mines. The moment you have a mine will get flooded, and then mining was not, large scale mining was not possible. Then what happened was in 1698, a steam-driven mine dewatering pump was developed. With the development of that pump, it became possible to dewater the mines, and large-scale coal mining became possible, and that means energy on a large scale became possible in the 18th century. And once energy on a large scale was available, then came persons like James Watt and Thomas Edison. They were pure inventors. James Watt, when he invented the steam engine, he started with steam engine. Carnot cycle was not known. Thermodynamics was not there. But he just invented his product based on knowledge of prior technology, based on whatever they could intuitively examine by looking at things and proceed further. Thermodynamics came much later. Similarly, Thomas Edison was a pure inventor. They developed all the products based on knowledge of prior technology and systematic and intuitive pursuit to development. They were very systematic. If you look at particularly the work by Thomas Edison, systematically he went from one product to other product, kept on developing technologies based on and systematic and intuitive approach. Now, people talk of transfer of knowledge. Well, this started somewhere in antiquity when somebody started writing something on the rocks and stones, make pictographs or ideographs. That writing on the rock edicts or writing on the walls of a cave, that was a sort of method of transferring knowledge, because once it was written via pictograph or ideographs, it was available to future generations to read. Now, historians say that they call three wealth systems as agricultural, industrial, and knowledge. somehow I feel that knowledge was present earlier systems as well. You cannot go in for agriculture without knowledge. The way agriculture has developed over centuries, over millenniums, it's only because there was a knowledge transfer, there was some knowledge which was existing at that time. But what has happened is, rate of generation of knowledge has now increased. It has accelerated like anything. The way knowledge is growing, something amazing. At least people of my age who are here, they must have seen that what are the kind of changes which we have seen in the knowledge, area of knowledge during our lifetime itself, and younger people will see many more changes as they live further. Technology is knowledge. Technology is power. And until recent times, in many cases even now, technology was developed by inventors based solely on prior technical knowledge. This is something which we have to remember, and this particular statement is what I'm going to cover more in the coming slide. But in the 19th century, a shift started in the relationship. Prior paradigm, science by elites and technology by people dependent on it for sustenance. Technologists had no formal education but were highly systematic in their approach. They had little grasp of science and needed little, because science at that time was only philosophy. The science as we know today was not existing at that time, but enactment of patent laws was very helpful to inventors, because they were able to, they could monetize their knowledge by inventing, by patenting whatever inventions they had. Universities were established, but separation between science and technology continued. However, some interchange started between science and technology once university was established, but they were separate departments. I'm not talking about here universities which were in India, like at Takshila, because they were pursuing mainly philosophy only in those universities. This interchange between science and technology became very intense when there was emergence of scientists, engineers, or engineers, scientists. For example, Lord Kelvin was a scientist, but he also worked as an engineer. And engineer scientists like Joseph Henry, who worked in the area of electromagnetics, he was an engineer, was also pursuing science at the same time. Electromagnetics is because of him. Carnot in France, 1796 to 1832, he gave us Carnot cycle, and that became the basis of thermodynamics. Now, 1796, earlier I told you that first James Watt was before this, and first steam-driven dewatering pump came in about 1698. That's a difference between the emergence of Carnot cycle and actual application of actual invention of a pump, even when Carnot cycle was not known. Alexander Bach, he was head of U.S. Coast Survey and surveyed much of the U.S. To really find out where the mineral wealth is. J. Willard Gibbs, who again gave us thermodynamics, created statistical mechanics, invented vector calculus. He was an engineer by training and did all the scientific work. Maxwell, I think all electrical engineers, electronics engineers, physicists, they swear by Maxwell's equation. They are the basis of so many things. He was the person who was given the responsibility of laying a transatlantic cable for transmission of messages from UK to USA. Oliver Heaviside, who developed Maxwell's equation to the present form, the way we read them today. A turning point, because of these individuals, the relationship became intense, but the turning point actually came with the synthesis of aspirin by Adolf Bayer in Germany. It made the chemical industry realize the value of research dedicated to technological work. This was in 1899, not long back from where we are today. despite these developments, and this is the unfortunate part, many scientists continue to consider engineers as second-rate minds because they were not university educated, they were practical people. And Rutherford went to the extent, and it was 9 years before Chicago Pile, that energy of the nucleus would never be realized. Just imagine this kind of statement coming from Rutherford. And Donald Stokes has written a book in 1997 where he says, triumph of Maxwellian field theory over the more primitive ideas of half-educated electricians was a watershed in the development of electric power in Britain and America. Use the words here, and somebody writing in 1997 is using the words half-educated electricians. Maxwell himself was a person of that kind as per him, and he has given Maxwell's equation, and to call them as half-educated electrician is something really, and this book is a very famous book. People will give you the four-coordinate models every time they talk about relationship between science and technology, and this is what he has written in the book. Well, at the same time, engineers were working, though independent of scientists. They started using scientific methods to build what we call as engineering science. By 1900, engineering became a complex system of knowledge, highly systematic sciences, strength of materials, hydraulics, and also how to do manuals, handbooks, kinematics of machines, which evolved from practice. Kinematics of machine is very important, say, for mechanism, which we have, say, a railway engine, the way a linear motion is translated into rotary motion. That is what all of us, those who are mechanical engineers, they have studied kinematics of machine, and one of the chapters, important chapter, is converting linear motion into a rotary motions. All that kinematic of machines, it evolved from practice. Many fields assume the characteristics of an autonomous technological science, and this trend continues. And engineering science is now a field at par with natural sciences. Strong relationship exists between physical sciences and civil, mechanical, and electrical engineering, chemistry with chemical engineering, and the same is happening now in case of life sciences and corresponding technologies which are coming. Value system with regard to systematic pursuit based on theory and practice was the same for both scientists and engineers. But difference was in physical sciences, the prestige went to the most abstract and general, that is mathematical theorists, Newton, Einstein, and other scientists like them. Instrumentation and applications generally ranked lowest, and that is happening even now in the minds of some people. In technology, the successful designer or builder ranked highest, the mere theorist the lowest. This is a reverse of the value systems which was being pursued by the two. The general perception was that two communities were pursuing different end goals. Scientists seek to know, engineers seek to do. However, there were individuals who were driven by the goals of understanding, that is science, and its use, that is technology. Both pursuing both. Also the knowledge and knowledge are used together. And there are several individuals who have been doing that and who keep on doing that. So what is the relationship between the two? How do we model this relationship? There are two views: knowledge for the sake of knowledge, this is what we have seen so far, and utilitarian aspect of knowledge. These two views have been there for quite a long time. In 1945, it happened immediately after the Second World War. The President of US was keen that US, after having won the Second World War in a very decisive manner, that US should maintain its lead in science and technology development as in the coming decades. He set up a committee chaired by Vannevar Bush to examine how to proceed further. He submitted his report in 1945. Vannevar Bush was an electrical engineer associated with the Manhattan Project. His report, he writes, basic science is performed without thought of practical ends. This was what his report says, and the result was this model that basic research leads to applied research, design and development, then production and operation. This was the model which was not explicitly written by Vannevar Bush, but based on the report, this was the model which was came. But immediately the report was questioned. Technology developed independent of science. People started giving examples of steam engine, of aircraft, and the help provided by technical tools in experimentation, which in turn leads to development in science. And therefore the reverse linear model, which states that new scientific possibilities are created by technology. So there was an intense debate which started. And interesting part is this report by Vannevar Bush came in 1945. In 1980, some notes emerged from the deliberations of this particular committee chaired by Vannevar Bush. They were lying in the United States academic press, which indicate that Vannevar Bush wanted certain examples like particularly development of aircraft to be included in the report to emphasize this point that several things happened before science, but he was overruled by other people in the committee saying that how can we give examples of cycle mechanics inventing aircraft in the report. So this kind of prejudices have been existing. If a cycle mechanics has developed an aircraft, why not acknowledge it? This is a reality. But these were the kind of prejudices which all societies suffer from, and this is what one has to guard against. Well, the result of all this debate was that the US government under Ministry of Defense, they funded a project, Hindsight. Hindsight traces research in the form of events that led to the development of 20 military systems. This is a paper published by Sherwin and Eisenson in 1967. I picked up from there. There were military systems existing earlier, say in phase 1. They were developed better military systems, say in phase 2. So between phase 1 and phase 2, what are the events which took place, which led to the development of the improved systems? And I quote from that paper, the most significant finding was that the improvement in performance or reduction in cost is largely the synergistic effort of a large number of scientific and technological innovations, of which only about 10% had been made at the time the earlier system was designed. So 90% was defined in the period intervening between the two phases of the system. Of the innovations or events, 9% were classified as science, 91% as technology. See the difference in percentages. 95% of all events was funded by the defense sector, and nearly 95% were motivated by a recognized defense need. Only 0.3% came from undirected science. This tells you the value of pursuing directed research directed towards a goal. The most obvious way in which undirected science appears to enter into technology and utilization on a substantial scale seems to be in the compressed, highly organized form of a well-established clearly expressed general theory or in the evaluated knowledge of handbooks, textbooks, and university courses. Science does improve our knowledge. It proceeds further, but one under that saying that one should not forget the value of this 91% and 95% coming from defense needs. Needs which result into this kind of further, this kind of development, it is very important to recognize that. The project Hindsight concludes that it may require 50 or more years before results of basic science are used. I think this is something which at least one may not agree, or at least I do not agree. If we see nuclear fission, between the discovery of fission and Chicago pile, number of years are much less than 50. But if you see photovoltaic effect, between knowledge of photovoltaic effect to actual solar energy coming, we have a very, very large gap, 3 times, maybe 150 years, and there we have only a decade. It acknowledges that in-house expert consultants help in solving unusually difficult applied technical problems, provided they are pursuing skillfully relevant problems. This is something which is of direct relevance to an organization like Atomic Energy. We have, whenever we have problems, say growing up in BRC, I have seen problems, say when the Dhruva reactor was commissioned, there was problems of precipitating water, and since we had expert chemists right there, our chemistry group was able to solve it. Recently we had problem in Kakarapar coolant channel failure. Again, since expert groups who were pursuing skillfully relevant problems are present right in BRC, they were able to find solutions. So it is definitely very useful to have chemistry group, materials group, physics groups, and control and instrumentation group, those who are pursuing skillfully relevant problems present in-house, whose pursuits are such, whose knowledge base is such that they can solve all the relevant problems which exist in our, as technology advances. There are more surveys which were done. The reverse linear model, the technology is knowledge, that became more and more dominant. And there was a meeting of science historians in 1972. In their proceedings, they are saying that these proceedings is the extended funeral of the linear model, which first came from the report of Vannevar Bush. Why all this was going on? What's the reason? The reason is funding of research. Where exactly funding should be directed? Everyone was competing for research funds. If science drives technology, the money should be spent on science. If technology drives both itself and science, the money should be spent on technology. This is the basic reason was all these studies were going on. This was the basic reason. But what now we see today, we have multiple facets of S&T relationship. Science and technology have similarities and differences. Both are progressing based on a systematic approach, but technology is an enterprise much larger than science. Views about their relationship have been evolving. Earlier we had hierarchical models, the linear model, that is technology as the application of science, and the reverse linear model, technology creates new scientific possibilities. And now we have non-hierarchical models. Technology and science as mirror image twins, this is one model. Continuum model, that is science-technology complex. Both have to exist together. That military-industrial complex. And there's a blurring of distinction between the two, particularly in the field of computer science and engineering. It is difficult to say what is science and what is technology. And in a very recent book, Narayan Murthy and Odumosu, I think they are at Harvard, they propose an altogether different concept. They call it a discovery-invention cycle. There's a discovery followed by invention, there's a new discovery followed by new inventions. Narayan Murthy spent early part of his career in the Bell Labs, a major part, and he's giving several examples from what happened in Bell Labs to sort of consolidate his views, to prove his views about discovery invention cycle. He's a Delhi University graduate and then moved to Bell Labs from there. Very interesting quote here I like to give. William Shockley, who won Nobel Prize in 1956 for discovery of a transistor. He opined that adjectives like pure, applied, unrestricted, fundamental, basic, academic, industrial, practical, they are being used by some in a derogatory sense. Some use it to belittle practical objectives, while others use them to brush off long-range values of explorations into new areas where useful outcomes cannot be foreseen. You may be having some new ideas whose useful outcomes you cannot see today, but there will be some tomorrow. Today it may not be there. Maybe at the time when Einstein wrote his paper on theory of relativity, nobody knew that what will be its value in the long run. Today we know that GPS is possible because of theory of relativity. It was definitely not known in the beginning of the previous century when theory of relativity came into picture. But this basic applied nomenclature, though it has been decried and derided by many people, it is embedded so deep in the establishment, both in the documentation and also in the psyche of individuals, that it continues to survive. It will not go away. It will continue. But one issue which is clear, that earlier people like Einstein and people like Newton and others, theorists like them, they were working intuitively. They were working on paper and pencil. They were working with very simple experiments. So they could pursue whatever they want. But now, undirected basic science, which thrives on patronage, it has become very big, very large. The kind of funding which they are asking for, that funding is not available. Those problems which could be solved by simple experimentation, by paper and pencil, those problems have been solved. The problems which we now have, they require very, very expensive experimentation. So governments are putting a ceiling on funding. Patrons of research or no government, they find they can no longer afford that kind of research. With the result, all these issues, that multifaceted relationship between science and technology, acceleration in the rate of knowledge production, and squeeze on funding by the governments, this has led to new methods of knowledge production. Let us see what are the new methods. During the period between the two world wars, laboratories came up in several areas, particularly chemical, pharmaceutical, electrical, electronics industries. All these laboratories, both by the government and by the private sector, were set up during this period. Prior to World War I, laboratory was only for testing. They were not for research, or there are surveys or testing laboratories. Research laboratories were not there, but they started coming up during the period between two world wars. Complex technologies require high level of continuity of skills and cannot be provided by students. Students come to university for 4 years, 5 years, get the degree and go out. But you need continuity of skills, and that was the reason for setting up of those laboratories, because you need highly qualified engineers and scientists and technical support staff, and they are not available in universities, because in 5 years after that you have to find a new person, train the new person, and that is why I think those of my colleagues here who are associated with funding from BRNS, every time we see this issue, students come, after 6 months he goes away, next students come, he goes away after 6 months, and continuous training and retraining is needed. Laboratories were set up to carry out research in nuclear, aerospace, defense, and computer technologies outside the university framework. This was started happening, and first major laboratories in atomic area came after the Manhattan Project, Argonne National Laboratory was the first one, which was set up on 1st July 1946. And now, again, because of squeeze of funding requirement has grown like crazy for advanced facilities. Now, multiple nations are coming together to solve problems related to understanding the universe. That is, CERN is the laboratory in high energy physics for this area, FAIR, LIGO, square kilometer, SKS, that is square kilometer array, and so on. Or to solve a specific challenge such as energy security, and ITER, International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, coming up in south of France, is another example. And this also resulted into rise of science diplomacy, how scientists started interacting and exchanging notes with other. Here I have said that outside university framework, nuclear, aerospace, defense, computer technologies, laboratory scheme. But again, there's a twist here which has started happening now about the linkage between the laboratories and universities. I'll come later to this. Technological advances have helped to solve several old problems like famines. I think all of you in your school history books, you must have read about various famines in India, various famines in other countries, and large-scale epidemics which were always going on. But new problems have emerged now. Several old epidemics like plague and others have been solved, but now we have new epidemics. The ongoing pandemic, rather now it has just come to end, is an example of that. New problems include energy demand, which is increasing like anything. Continuous increase in energy demand in India, in all other countries. As a result of that, environmental degradation, climate change, water shortage, resource sustainability, these are the new problems. And on one hand, we have new problems coming up, and we also have in parallel that universities are nurturing researchers many times more than what they can absorb. So those researchers who have done their doctoral research in the university, they are finding employment in national laboratories, in industry, in consulting organizations, in international agencies, and think tanks. And once you are highly qualified persons outside universities, what will they do? They will produce more knowledge. They are the people who are very aware people. They have their thoughts about science and technology. Their concepts of science and technology are very clear. They will generate more knowledge. So all these organizations, consulting organizations, international agencies and think tanks, they also are storehouses of knowledge. They are also developing new knowledge. So data from, there's a survey done by in US, and there's a book published by US National Academic Press in 2018. They say that in case of USA, only 43.2% of doctorates in STEM field are employed in academic institutions. Majority is outside academic institutions. If for engineers, this percentage is as low as 25%. That report gives a breakup, a discipline-wise breakup. Lowest is in case of engineers, only 25% in universities. Rest are all in national laboratories, industry, consulting organization, and international agency. What is the result now? The knowledge is being produced in a distributed manner outside universities as well. It is not that universities are producing knowledge. Knowledge production is a distributed activity, and it is because of new institutional settings which have come up, because very large number of researchers are leaving universities after completing their courses and are employed outside. So workplaces are generating knowledge. In my personal view, it was always so, but now it is coming in writing. Why I say it always so? In India, we set up ICAR, as Imperial Council of Agricultural Research, sometime around 1920, 1925. Agriculture was always existing in India. Same is the situation in other countries. Agricultural universities came in USA in the, I think, second half of 19th century. But agriculture was always there. So earlier, agriculture was being done where knowledge was generated by farmers. It was transferred from one farmer to the one generation to next generations by word of mouth communication. People were not writing. Knowledge was being generated. They never used the word research, but it was research based on their daily observations. Knowledge was being generated, knowledge was being transferred at workplaces. There were workplaces. Universities came much later. Universities on large scale, one can forget the few isolated examples which existed in India, which existed elsewhere of universities. But similarly, for example, pottery has been going on in India maybe for the last 5,000 years. The knowledge was being generated and passed on from generation to generation. But that knowledge was being generated at workplaces, and workplaces are now generating knowledge at a much higher speed than whatever they were doing earlier. There was a debate at the time of setting up of Berlin University during the first decade of the 19th century, and that debate is something worth going through. And Henry Neumann, an Irish priest, he gave a series of lectures in 1852 in Dublin on the topic idea of a university, what a university should be. And this discussion on universities, what a university should be doing, what should be called a university, is a continuing discussion. And there is a seminar in 2001 in Hiroshima University, Japan. And in a summing up, they say there are several ideas of a university. They coexist around the world and in any large country. The first mission of university when we started, when the world started setting up university, was teaching, that a teacher should sit along with the students and teach them. And since books was something scarce, printing press made several books available. Number of books were printed and distributed. And this availability of books did challenge the faculty, the position of faculty. Some people still very fondly talk about the Guru Shishya tradition in India, but if you come to think of it, if books were not there, we would have still followed that tradition. Why we are not following it? It's not that we do not respect our past, we do not honor our past. It is fact that now Guru is writing books. We are reading those books. And we are still following that Guru Shishya tradition, but in a different way, by reading the books written by the Guru. So Guru Shishya tradition, where it was a physical form of interaction, has been replaced by an intermediate product, and that is book. So this is something which availability of books has changed many things, and it has spread knowledge across much wider section of the society than what was earlier. And with the internet coming in, we are explosion of knowledge, the way it is spreading. Then in the second half of the 19th century, when research, importance of research was realized, the second mission which was assigned to university was research. And there was Humboldt has written a memorandum, and this was unpublished. It was located only in 1900, and it became obvious from that particular memorandum only in 1900, the way that debate was there for setting up of Berlin University. And third mission has been assigned now in the past few decades, only I should say towards the end of last century and particularly in the present century, and that is service to industry. That university should also serve industry and society. It is manifested by the fact that earlier there used to be no office of sponsored research, no office of technology transfer, no office of intellectual property right in any university. No university had these offices. Now every university in USA, in India, all elite universities in India have Office of Sponsored Research, Office of Intellectual Property Right, Office of Technology Transfer, which was not there earlier. Even in Department of Atomic Energy, a formal Office of Technology Transfer in BRC was set up in 1996, and now it is there for entire Department of Atomic Energy. So what is all this telling you? It is capitalization of knowledge. I think it goes against the Indian thought that Saraswati and Lakshmi should be separate. Here we are trying to get Lakshmi out of Saraswati. Capitalization of knowledge is taking precedence over disinterestedness. Disinterestedness was the norm for researchers earlier. Now it has become capitalization of knowledge. Everybody is emphasizing that you patent your ideas before they are exploited by others. That is what? That is capitalization of knowledge. Technology transfer function has now been accepted by all universities. If you talk to old-timers, somebody who is 90 years old, he would say it is walking on the dark side. Let's not do it. But now every university is having technology transfer functions, IPR cells, and Office of Sponsored Research, and incubation centers. Incubation centers is only during last 1 decade. This is what, earlier there are no incubation centers in India. I think IIT Madras was one of the first to start it, and now they are spreading everywhere. And the government is giving full emphasis that they should be done. There was tension when research mission was added to university function. It was overcome by teaching insights obtained from research to students. They found researchers are able, better teachers, they are able to, whatever insights they get as a part of doing research, they are able to teach that to students, and this is what practice we follow in our training school also, because professionals are providing both tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge to students. Tension again when third mission was assigned, that now university faculty, while contributing to industry or solving social problems, have to contribute to developing new methodologies, new concepts and theories. And those who belong to the old school think that working for industry implies walking on the dark side. And many universities now engaged in academic research and post-academic research, and setting up of incubation centers is the acceptance of the importance of post-academic research by the universities. Now, this is one approach, that to have these 3 missions, assign these 3 missions, teaching, research, and service to society and industry, to universities. There is if university can help solve problems, why not add university function to a workplace? This is something which is done regularly in medical education. You are teaching hospitals. The teaching part and the actual profession, they coexist. Why not universalize it? This is what we have done in Homi Jehangir National Institute. Research centers like BRC, IECAR, RRCAT, VCC, they are now both university as well as a workplace. The both are coexisting. Now, that was the reason why I did all the research to justify HBNI to higher authorities. Regarding research categorization, several terminologies which are, as I said earlier, are used in a derogatory sense. We should use simple terminology: academic research and post-academic research, without assigning any value system to them. Both academic research and post-academic research have epistemic and use objectives and outcomes. You both produce knowledge, both are utilitarian. Dominant objective in case of academic research is epistemic, or it may not be, it may be a scheduled activity when pursued in a setting like BRC or IGCAR or VCC or RRCAT, or it may be a unscheduled activity when pursued in a university. Post-academic research is pursued with use as the end goal, and it will always have epistemic sub-objective. It is likely to be accompanied by development, which is a scheduled activity, and teams pursuing post-academic research will always be large and multidisciplinary. They cannot be small teams. Take the case of ECIL, take the case of nuclear fuel complex. The kind of technological base which they have developed after some research has been done elsewhere, the kind number of people they need, number of facilities they need, that cannot be done in a university setting. That kind of post-academic work can be done only in a large complex like a nuclear fuel complex, like Midhani, like ECIL, and so on. Many universities now engage both in academic and post-academic work, while national laboratories have been always doing like this. So for doctoral education, we should change the intellectual climate in the university to develop a healthy respect for engaging in professional practice with scholastic skills and moral sensitivity. Scholastic skills are very important, and this is what the model which I have been advocating, that we have academic research and post-academic research, and there's a large overlap between the two. In case of academic research, existing scientific understanding, existing technology is the input, and output is improved scientific understanding as well as improved technology. In case of post-academic research and development, existing technology and scientific understanding. I have reversed here scientific understanding first, here existing technology first. Both are inputs and outputs are both. So there is an overlap between the two, or you can say the two are now fully intertwined. Both have to proceed further. We have to respect for both, otherwise we cannot progress. So in summary, let me say that quest for knowledge and inspiration for use can exist independently as well as simultaneously. The strength of linkage between science and technology varies from discipline to discipline, and there are individuals who are members of both the communities. Engineering science is a distinct discipline with its own norms, practices, and journals. Results of undirected research may be separated from use in space and time, but they do find use. And one should not brush off long-range values of explorations into new areas where outcomes cannot be foreseen. And of course, but how much funding to provide for academic research, which is totally undirected, it depends upon the resources which a nation can provide for that. When we have immediate problems to be solved, obviously they will take precedence over totally undirected research. The relationship between science and technology is not hierarchical. They are fully intertwined, and the progress in one depends on itself and the other. Both have to be pursued. Innovation cannot be nurtured in an atmosphere where academic elites look down upon industrial counterparts, like the statement by Rutherford I said, or industry leaders dismiss informed faculty as mere paper tigers. Cooperation and mutual respect is necessary for nurturing innovation. And here I must say that academic research is necessary, but not sufficient. For national development cannot be based on the papers which is the product of academic research. Those papers have to be implemented. That means academic research has to be followed by post-academic research, and an institutional structure which separates institutions focusing on academic research and institutions that focus on post-academic research, in my view, is no longer viable. We have to evolve an institutional structure where academic research and post-academic research can coexist, where both can thrive to give new products and processes and nurture an innovation ecosystem, and where expertise can be pooled to solve real-life problems. And I end with this. There's a quotations here. First one is by Richard Courant. He is a mathematician who laid the foundation for the finite element method. Will people, all engineers, whether electrical, mechanical, chemical, and physicists, they use it extensively. He writes that to pursue mathematical analysis, but turn back on application implies subjecting analysis to hopeless atrophy. If as a mathematician you have developed something, you say, to apply this analysis is not my job, somebody else should do. Why should somebody else do? You should yourself look for applications. This is a debate which we always have with many mathematicians, or rather all theorists. You have developed a theory, you are the one who knows it best. Please find its application, find where it can be used. If you don't do it, then some new theory will come and your theory will be overtaken and forgotten. For the sake of, if you respect your theory, please go and apply it somewhere. People have to keep moving between academic research and post-academic research. Then only it will work very well. And I like to give another quote here. There's a book published in 2016 from Germany. The fact that hundreds of students of new universities in China and India copy the curricula from the US or Europe and send many doctoral students to study there results in a serious neglect of their own scholarly traditions as well as local and regional problems. These local and regional problems are neglected. A student goes there, pursues doctoral work, doctoral research for the problems which is important for Europe or which is important for USA, and then he will say that he is not finding a job in India, he will find a job also there only, he will not come back. And of course, scholarly traditions, particularly this is happening in the area of social sciences and philosophy, where the students who work there are neglecting our own scholarly traditions in that area. In science and engineering, the traditions are more or less same everywhere. Why it is happening? Since working on such problems seldom receive proper recognition, a focus on regional problem that does not help building a scholar's career, because everyone is bothered about number of publications and citations and so on. If you work on problems which are useful for Europe and USA, you will get more citations and people work only on them. This is something which we have to guard against, and this requires reorienting the system of incentives in a big way. So thank you very much. This is what I'd like to say. So, any questions? Yes.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes. Dinesh, Kaya.
Really very interesting summary, and starting from the very old age, how the things have evolved. I have never heard such kind of a lecture. This is the first time I really got a comprehensive presentation of this subject. So this is really very eye-opening for me, and I understood many things which I was not knowing so far. So definitely now you have put up a way forward for us. But I want you to make comment that why India is poor in post-academic research. You know, we had been doing good academic research, and we do publish good papers, and we compete at every level. And when it comes to deliverables like post-academic research, which you talk about, a simple thing like in my lifetime, I have seen superconductor, I have seen nanomaterials, I have seen graphene, and so many things, where in terms of academic research, we compete with everybody in the world. But when it comes to post-academic research, converting into useful product, we are not successful. It means India as a whole country, I see that really we lack, whereas other people like Western countries, Europe, Japan, they're far ahead in that. So what is your comment on that, because you have done a lot of research in this?
Yeah, I think you are partly correct. in some areas we have done very well. If you see food production, milk production, egg productions, what was there in 1947, what is there today, tremendous progress has been made, and this has been done by agricultural universities, this with the ICAR, with the extension centers which has been established by ICAR. Everywhere they have extension center. That is one community of, I should say, agricultural scientists have done wonders for this country. We have progressed a lot. In chemical industry, we have done quite well. The way there have been individuals, for example, Institute of Chemical Technology, Matunga, Bombay, the kind of interaction which faculty has with the local chemical industry is fantastic. They solve their problems. They do not feel shy of dabbling in the actual industry problems and solving them and moving forward. Again, there we have done quite well. And again, I should say Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space have done quite well. Take the case of your organization, the way NFC started and now you are building all your machines, all kinds of alloys, all kinds of products you are able to make. The work which was done by NFC, Metallurgy Division, Metallurgy Group of BRC and IGCAR, together the whole thing is moving forward and we are doing very well. So I can give several successful examples where we have done well. But yes, there are certain areas where we have not done well, and this is in the area of physics. Solar cells. The first solar cells were perhaps made in BRC, and then Central Electronics Limited was set up in Ghaziabad near Delhi. But we somewhere lost track. In semiconductors, we lost track. They were not pursued to the same extent as they should have been pursued. But in those areas, I should say, those areas which are now being clubbed as engineering physics, there we have not done well. And I think that is where we should catch up and do more, and so that we are able to fill those gaps also. I'm sure with the stress which is now being given to the area of incubation centers, innovation policy, come to think of it, you see the first science policy, I think 1957, then came science and technology policy in 1986, then came science, technology, innovation policy in 2013. Innovation policy came only in 2013. Before that, perhaps we were engaged in building up of our research and education system. So I think my answer is partly we have done very well, partly certain areas we have neglected, and those we have to catch up. In examples of superconducting wires and all, which are their correct examples. There we need some catching up. I am sure that we'll be able to catch up in the coming years. But the stress which is now being given that defense production should be in India to make it, that will perhaps spur many more innovations and things will improve. But agriculture, you see numbers, they are revealing where we were and where we have come. And this is all agriculture scientists, hello to them, my salute to them, and the poor fellows nobody recognizes.
Sir, in continuation, you are right that engineering physics, probably the system in education, what we have seen, and I am commenting in the light of new education policy, which is giving now a lot of flexibility from changing over one subject to other subject. Now the time will come when you can take an engineering degree and then you can get a MSc degree. But now in India it is not possible.
Yes.
But in world over, yes, it is possible. A graduate can go and he can pursue his MSc degree in physics. So that type of bar or that type of education system which was pursuing, we were getting knowledge just for the sake of getting the job. That was the main thinking which was behind that education system. But now the new education policy being implemented, the fruit which we are going to see, say after 5 years, when a person mathematics, Hindi and something else will give a wonder. So that type of change in scenario is being visible. Let us hope for
Yeah.
good, sir.
There is a change, and in the new education policy, there is a very good concept given, cluster-based universities, that institutions can come together to make clusters. And I have argued and written about it that we can set up clusters of national labs and universities and make larger universities. One example I'd like to give, if you see the city of Chandigarh, rather I should say Tri-City, Chandigarh, Panchkula and Mohali. They have Punjab University, they have Chandigarh University, they have ISER, they have IIT Ropar is only 80 kilometers away, they have CSIR labs, 3-4 labs. Why can't they make a cluster and provide for mobility of research students moving from one to another? I have written about it, I'm going to give a talk sometime in July on this topic there, and I'll further take it up with them. Now, what is HBNI? HBNI is a cluster, and initially people were reluctant to collaborate and talk, and I have seen right from the inception of HBNI in 2005 till now, the collaboration is slowly increasing. As we move further, it will increase further. A similar cluster setup was conceptualized in France. In Saclay area, there was a Paris South University, Paris Sud University. Now they have set up Paris Saclay University. What they have done, all the labs and universities in that, they are clubbed into Paris Saclay University. This was given legal status in 2019, and 2020 they appeared in the World University list. A concept exactly similar to HBNI. So this kind of clustering is very important. Why is Caltech so important in the area of space? Because NASA has a very big space lab right on the campus of Caltech. So there's a common leadership of Caltech and NASA Space Lab. At the name of that NASA Space Lab I'm forgetting. And this coexistence of Caltech and NASA Space Lab together, this provides both large facilities for post-academic research and academic research. That ambience has to be created where we respect both and move on. Similarly, Princeton has a fusion lab funded by Department of Energy of USA right on its campus. So they are leaders in fusion research. So we have to respect all kind of knowledge, all kind of good knowledge. I'm not saying if somebody is fooling around, he should be taken to task. And cluster these, make clusters, provide for mobility of faculty and students, and then only we will be able to move forward. Okay? Yes.
Thank you very much, sir, for the thought-provoking and scientific enlightening talk. It was truly an interactive session. Your talk has showcased multiple facets of a science and technology relationship. I hope all the audience have truly enjoyed from this lecture. Once again, thank you very much, sir. Now, I request our Honorable Director, Dr. T.K. Sinha, sir, to honor our chief guest and speaker of this afternoon, Professor R.B. Grover, sir, with a memento and shawl as a token of gratitude for his enormous contribution in the field of nuclear science. Sir, please. I request Shravani to assist. Sinha, sir. Thank you, sirs. Now I request Additional Director, Research and Development and Secretary, INS Hyderabad Chapter, Dr. T. Sunil Kumar, to propose for vote of thanks.
Warm good afternoon, good evening to one and all. Actually, a very stimulating talk has been delivered by Dr. R.B. Grover, who is presently the member Atomic Energy Commission, and who has been interacting with the nuclear science and technologies right through his career, and now nurturing the activities of HBNI also. He has emphasized the difference and independency of science and technology, and also in the question hour he has highlighted the requirements of clustered universities and moving the academic research, studies into a industrial level, industry related academic level. Thank you, sir, for the stimulating talk which has given stimulus to many of us. And as has been the practice earlier, all the INS members of Hyderabad chapter has joined us with including our mentor Dr. Dinesh Srivastava, CE NFC, Dr. G. Amrendra, RRF at Hyderabad, and Dr. D.K. Sinha, Chairman INS Hyderabad chapter. They are physically present here. Many other seniors have joined online, both from INS Mumbai, INS Hyderabad, and our former directors and additional directors of AMD also are available online. All the regional centers of AMD are online, joined us, and many university professors and academicians have joined, and our training school officers are here. I thank one and all for joining this event. And now we will have a second part, which will be the annual general body meeting, which will be of the INS Hyderabad chapter. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, we have come to the end of today's invited talk. I request all the senior officials and staff present in this auditorium for a cup of tea in the adjacent class. A small announcement: all the members of INS group who are connected virtually are requested to stay connected, and also the members from this gathering, the INS members from this gathering, are also requested to reassemble at 4:30 for annual general body meeting of INS. Thank you.